Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, today's episode comes to you courtesy of Juan, who's been supporting this channel as a general tier patron, and I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like Juan, so again, Juan, thank you so much. And the personalized deck tech that Juan chose was one on the most dangerous gamer, focused on just having a good time visiting attractions. So, the most dangerous gamer is a 2/2 human gamer guest that has Death Touch and costs 2 black and a green that says, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, open an attraction. And whenever you open an attraction, you get a counter on the most dangerous gamer. And on top of that, whenever you claim the prize of an attraction, destroy target permanent. So, yeah, there's quite a bit going on with this commander. ETB and attack trigger opening attractions, which have great games that you could potentially play, and when you do claim the prize of those attractions, you get to destroy some things. So this is great removal on this commander as well, plus all those benefits from the attractions, plus the counters that gets on this. Yeah, you can do some pretty crazy stuff with this, and you can have a lot of great time visiting those attractions yourself. Now, when it comes to the cards that we're going to be including in this deck, every single card is less than $1, so it's a very budget-friendly deck. On top of that, as we are going through these cards, I'm going to be breaking them down in different tactics to show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. On top of that, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And now with all that said, let's jump into it. Now, really quick, I just want to give an example of an attraction, just in case you aren't aware of what these cards are and how they work. Attractions are artifacts, but they don't have a mana cost. They're kept in a separate deck, and they have different kinds of magic backs as well. They aren't cast, and in fact, they never go into your hand. So essentially, to get an attraction on the battlefield, you can use something like your commander's trigger, like the attack trigger or the ETB, to get them onto the battlefield. So when you're told to open that attraction, you get the top card of your attraction deck and you put it into play. And then each attraction has attraction lights numbered 1 to 6 to the right of the text box, and different variants of the same attraction may have different lights lighting up. The number 1 will never be lit up, and the number 6 is always going to be lit up. And at the beginning of your first main phase on each of your turns, you roll a 6-sided die, and when the lit up number is rolled, you're going to visit that attraction, and its ability is triggered. And if you want more information on attractions, you can find a great resource with MTG Wiki that has a lot of information on them. But yeah, for information booth, looks like this one has the 2 lit up and of course the 6. And when you visit it, you draw a card. Very simple. But now that we've talked about attractions, let's talk about the cards in the deck. So, first up, of course, there's Wayfarer's Bauble, which we can sacrifice to go get a basic land into play tapped. Next up, when it comes to ramping, we're also going to be running some other early ramp spells like Search for Tomorrow, Suspend 2, go get a basic land to play untapped, and then some enchantments with Wild Growth and Fertile Ground, each of which are going to have one of our lands tapped for extra. Moving on, we've got, of course, some other, 2 mana spells that can go get us another land into play. Rampant Growth, a great one. Edge of Autumn does so most of the time, or we can cycle it away by sacking a land. And then Sakura Tribe Elder, we can sacrifice poor old Steve to go get that land as well. Next up, we've got some 3 mana spells with Cultivate. Go get 2 basics. 1 goes into play tap, 1 goes into our hand. Hero, which we can sacrifice a land and go get 2 into play untapped. And Grow from the Ashes, if we kick it, we get 2 into play untapped. If we don't kick it, just 1. And then finally, we also have Coming Attraction. Go get that basic land into play tapped. And on top of that, open an attraction. So yeah, some great value out of this one, especially with this deck. But of course, on top of our commander and this spell, we've got plenty of other ways to open attractions. So, first up, we've got 3 creatures with some great ETBs. Deadbeat Attendant, Petting Zookeeper, and Discourteous Cleric. Each have, when they enter the battlefield, open an attraction. On top of that, Discourteous Cleric has, at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more attractions, you draw a card and lose 1 life, which, yeah, we're going to get to that amount quite quickly. Moving on, some other great ETBs. Squirrel Squatters, Soul Swindler, and Spinneret. Each of them have, when they enter the battlefield, open an attraction. On top of that, We can also get Squirrel tokens with Squirrel Squatters. Soul Swindler can be indestructible. And Spinneret, well, also can get +2/+0 and Menace if we've got 3 more attractions. And again, yeah, gonna take absolutely no time to get to that amount. Moving on, step right up, get 2 attractions open. Lifetime pass holder, we can basically keep getting back again and again and again, because when it dies, we get an attraction. And yeah, if we ever roll a 6, well, we get a lifetime pass holder back. Quick Fixer has, whenever it deals comp damage to a player, open an attraction, also has Menace to help it get through. So yeah, if we get through, we can keep opening more and more attractions with this. Next up, Line Cutter. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we roll to visual our attractions, so we get some extra value out of those attractions. And then Night Shift the Living Dead can help work on those dice rolls. After you roll a die, you may pay 1. If you do, increase or decrease the result by 1. Do this only once each turn. And if we roll a 6, we get a 2/2 Black Zombie Employee Creature token. So yeah, some great benefits with this one. And speaking of great benefits, next up, we've got Sculpting Steel, which is an artifact for 3 that lets us copy any artifact on the battlefield. And guess what? Those attractions, again, are artifacts. So once we get a really valuable one into play, we can copy it very simply with this. Speaking of which, we have the Golden Pig of this deck, which is the #1 card out of our 99. A fantastic card in this deck, and that is going to be Mirrorworks. Artifact for 5. Whenever their non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that artifact. Again, those attractions that are coming into play, when we open them, are non-token. Because, yeah, they are actual Magic cards in a separate deck. They are going to enter the battlefield, and we do get that trigger, so we can pay 2 to get an extra copy of each of those attractions. So, yeah, just pay an extra 2 mana for an extra attraction. What's not to love about this? A fantastic value in this deck, and definitely, in my opinion, the Golden Pig. But next up, let's talk about some ways to really get our attractions going. Because next up we've got Voyager Staff, which can blink one of our creatures, and yeah, we've got a ton of creatures with ETBs that open attractions, including our commander, Temur Sabertooth, which can bounce a creature back to our hand, and Reincarnation, which can get us a creature back that died. And again, if it's a creature that has an ETB like our commander, we get to open another attraction. Speaking of which, a lot of Feigned Death type effects. Basically, if this creature dies, bring it right back. Feigned Death, Undying Mouse do the exact same thing. They also come back with a counter. And Supernatural Stamina gives them a +2/+0 before that happens. Also, we have Abnormal Endurance, which does the exact same thing, but for 1 more mana. Demonic Gifts, which basically does the exact same thing. And Fake Your Own Death, which does the exact same thing, but we also get a treasure token. So, yeah, again, the most important thing, though, is, hey, when you die, you come right back so we can use and abuse your ETB. And we're not done with them yet. Return to Action. Basically the exact same thing, but also gives lifelink. Kaya's Ghost Form, which we can enchant a creature or planeswalker. Whenever the enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, it comes right back. And then Undying Evil, it's going to give target creature Undying until end of turn. So when it dies, if it had no counters on it, it comes back into play with a +1 counter on it. But we also have some sneaky auras that we can utilize, well, to help with those creatures' ETBs, or to steal our opponent's creatures too. Minions return as flash and enchants a creature. When the enchanted creature dies, we get it into play under our control. Same thing with Unhallowed Pack, except there's no flash. In Shades form, very similar, but again, yeah, basically, hey, either utilize this to, use and abuse your ETBs with those attractions, or just utilize it to steal an opponent's creature. But how are we actually going to get to all these awesome cards? Well, we've got a ton of ways outside of many of our attractions to generate a lot of card advantage in this deck. Village Rites, we can sacrifice a creature to draw 2, and again, with those Feigned Death type effects, this can be fantastic. Next up, Sign in Blood, draw 2, lose 2, love it. Read the Bones, same thing except we scry 2 first, that can be fantastic for us. Next up, Blood Pact, same thing, instant speed though, draw 2, lose 2, Ambitions cost, step up 1 notch right there. Draw 3, lose 3, Ancient Craving does the exact same thing. Speaking of which, Siphon Mine basically just makes us draw 3 cards. After we make each opponent discard 1, Harmonize, 4 mana, draw 3, Promise of Power, draw 5, lose 5. Worth it every day of the week for us, though. Speaking of which, Damnable Pact. Target player draws X cards and loses X life. This can either be a great finisher for us by draining an opponent until they are no more, or yeah, drawing a lot of cards. And like I always say, 1 card for 1 life is a deal I'll make any day of the week in Commander. But now that we've talked about our own plans, what are some ways that we can throw a wrench into our opponent's plans? First up, we've got some creatures that have some great ETBs that we can use and abuse in a lot of ways with this deck. Rex Sage is going to destroy an artifact or enchantment. 6-line was the exact same thing, or we can destroy a land. And then we've got Broken Bond, destroy an artifact or enchantment, get an extra land into play. Moving on, Return to Nature, very flexible. Artifact or enchantment, or exile a card from a graveyard. Tear Asunder, a new great card. Kicker, exile target artifact enchantment, or if it was kicked, exile target non-land permanent instead. And then Beast Within, destroy target permanent. Give them a 3-3. Sure, here, take your 3-3. We'll get rid of your best permanent. Speaking of getting rid of permanents, Casualties of War, get rid of a lot of things. Choose 1 or more. Artifact, creature, enchantment, land, planeswalker. Yeah, very flexible, very fantastic. Speaking of which, Gaze of Granite, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X or less. A good emergency button to wipe the board if we need to. Speaking of which, one that works well with our attractions is Black Hole. Destroy target creature and up to X other target creatures, or X the number of attractions you visited this turn. So this can take out a lot of things. Speaking of which, again, Decree of Pain, hey, destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. This can be a massive influx of cards for us. Then in Garrick's Wake, a great one-sided board wipe. We're going to destroy all creatures and planeswalkers we don't control. So yeah, just wipe out all of our opponents' good stuff. But when it comes to good stuff, we are not done just yet, because we've got some great equipment that can really help us out. Chariot of Victory, equip creature has First Strike, Trample, and Haste. Works really well with our commander again. First Strike and Death Touch, that is fantastic in combat. And Haste, yeah, helps our commander attack right away for that trigger. Speaking of which, Swift of Boots protects our commander and gives haste as well. Hexproof is fantastic at not letting our opponents target our commander while still allowing us to. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's jump into lands. First up, there's Command Tower, which can tap for either our colors, Exotic Orchard, which can do so most of the time, and Ash Barrens, which we can basically land cycle away for one of our basics. Next up, speaking of basics, Evolving Wilds and Temporary Expanse, both of which can be sacrificed to get one of our basics into play tapped, and so can Riveteer's Overlook, but we also gain 1 life when we do so. Moving on, we've got Mirror Landscape and Blighted Woodland, each of which can help ramp us and get multiple lands into play. And then there's Temple of Malady, which helps us scry, and then Golgari Rotten Farm, which is a great bounce land. Finally, rounding out this deck, we're going to be running a lot of basics with forests and swamps. And now that we've talked about every single card in this deck, including the lands, let's talk about the price. Like I mentioned at the start of this episode, every single card in this deck, including the commander, is less than $1, so it's a very budget-friendly deck at $19.72. And actually, there might be even more potential savings for this deck by buying this deck on TCG Player and utilizing heavily played and damaged cards, which of course need a home too. Though, do keep in mind this estimated cost does not include the cost of basic lands or the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed the deck. And again, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.